NetsBoy, so let's hear what he has to say. His name is NetsBoy, he thinks the world is all over when the Nets just can't play.
What up, Net fans? NetsBoy here, bring your latest and your Brooklyn Nets news. Okay, so we got a lot to talk about and discuss in this episode, so let's dive right in. Okay, this episode I'm going to focus on mostly, the major news, of course, which is all the speculation surrounding James Harden. But before we talk about that, I do want to just, point out a few obvious things. So the Nets currently have lost 8 straight games. Currently are hanging on to, at this point, the 6th seed in the East by only a half a game over the Raptors. And as we all know, with the play-in situation for the 7 through 10 seeds, you really don't want to be below the 6th seed. So it's just been really frustrating. And, you look at the last few games, and there's just no desperation from this team. There's no urgency. It's like they have this mentality that well, we're hurt, we're missing Kevin Durant, we're missing Joe Harris, we're missing LaMarcus Aldridge, Nick Claxton missed a couple games. We're not fully healthy, so there's no reason to worry because eventually we're all going to come back healthy, and when we come back healthy, we're just going to flip a switch, and we're going to become the best team in basketball. Like that's the way this team is acting right now. And I'll tell you this right now, it really pisses me off because the Nets need to look in the mirror and realize that they, like I said, they're the 6th seed. They are a half a game out of being in a play-in tournament, which is very easy to go through one bad stretch or one more injury that they at the playoff time that could cost them. They may not even make the regular playoffs. So at some point, someone on the Nets needs to say, enough is enough. Let's play with some desperation. And maybe that's why James Harden is acting the way he's acting, because, it was very evident in the last game he played where he only had 4 points and had 6 turnovers that he was, mentally checked out of it. Like, he just didn't care. He's just like, whatever. Everyone thinks there's no big deal, so I don't think it's that big of a deal. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but every time you talk to any of the players, or at least, you talk to Kyrie Irving, you talk to Steve Nash, you talk to, all the guys, all the other players, they say, oh, well, we're not healthy, we're just trying to hang in there, right the ship as best we can, but, we're hoping that when we get healthy, we'll be able to turn it around. Well, guess what? You're not healthy, and who knows when the hell you will be healthy. All right, there's still no timetable on the return of Kevin Durant. Joe Harris might need a second ankle surgery because he's had even more setbacks. Nicholas Claxton can't seem to stay relatively healthy at all. And there's no set return table for LaMarcus Aldridge either. So tell me, Kyrie and the rest of the Nets and Steve Nash, where is the health coming from? And honestly, I think James Harden sees it. I think James Harden sees that this team is never going to be able to hit its full potential because there's always going to be something in the way, whether it's COVID, whether there's injuries, whether it's bad coaching by Steve Nash, whether it's all these things, something is going to get in the way of this team to be fully healthy and maximize its potential. So look, do I really think James Harden wants to be traded? My answer is no. Do I believe that James Harden is extremely upset and is thinking about other situations outside of the Nets? Yes. And that's probably where all this speculation came from. I don't believe James Harden's going to get traded. I don't. For a number of reasons. First and foremost, he keeps telling management he doesn't want to be traded. If you remember, there was an early article that said James Harden tells the Nets he doesn't want to be traded. Nets aren't even going to entertain trade offers. And then all of a sudden, a couple days later, they said, no, Nets are now willing to entertain trade ideas. Obviously, I don't know who started that because every time they talk to the Nets or the Nets organization or Steve Nash, who straight up said in his last press conference before the Nuggets game, no, we are not trading James Harden. Steve Nash, the head coach, said that. So they've got to make you believe that there's something crazy going on. And that's my theory. James Harden doesn't want to lose. He didn't come to the Nets force his way out of Houston to come to a situation where he was going to be a losing player. And that's what's happening now. And so, yeah, I don't believe James Harden wants to be traded. I definitely believe that he's entertaining the idea of leaving via free agency. And that's probably why the Nets are like, and Sean Marks and the Nets are saying, well, wait a minute. Maybe we should just explore some options because we're hearing that James Harden probably is not going to come back and re-sign with us if things don't turn around the way that we hope they will. And if that's the case, maybe we should see if we can get someone back for him. That's my theory. But look, there's so much speculation, about the Nets trading James Harden to the 76ers for Ben Simmons and all this thing. And, I was going to spend this episode going over some outside-the-box trade ideas because I don't know about you guys. I don't want Ben Simmons, okay? I don't like James Harden. We all know how animated I was about the Nets trading for James Harden last year. And by the way, this is part of the reason why, because I foresaw a situation like this where the Nets somehow wouldn't be fully healthy, wouldn't have hit their potential, and James Harden was going to immediately turn like this on the Nets, just like he turned on the Rockets and he turned on the Thunder before that. Remember, James Harden, this is a guy, James Harden, by the way, left the Oklahoma City Thunder because he wanted to be the guy. Remember that? Does everyone remember? He was the sixth man of the year. He was a great player. The Thunder went to the championship and they lost. At the time to I think it was one of the Heat victories was against the Thunder, and James Harden said, "You know what? I want to be the guy. I want to do better. I'm bolting to Houston." And then in Houston, he became the guy. Everything was great. The Houston Rockets go to the Western Conference Finals. Things don't work out, and what does he say? I don't want to be the guy anymore. I want to go join the super team Nets, and I'm going to throw a hissy fit. I'm going to get fat. I'm going to be this lazy guy. I'm going to force Houston's hands to trade me. And so Houston traded him to the Nets. So does this come to anyone's surprise that there's speculation that James Harden is doing the same thing now with the Nets because he's unhappy with the situation? Don't be surprised. So I understand the speculation. I just don't really believe that it's as serious as it is. But when you see what James Harden did, yes, it makes sense. So as much as I don't like James Harden, as much as I was upset about the trade for him, for these reasons, I certainly do not want Ben Simmons on the Nets. I'm sorry. And look, there is nothing wrong with Ben Simmons and his game, other than the fact that the guy doesn't shoot threes and is a mediocre free throw shooter. But his defense, his ability to finish, his athleticism, his passing ability, it's all top notch. So I'm not against the Nets trading Harden for Simmons on a talent standpoint. For me, it's between the ears with Ben Simmons. I don't want another head case. We're already dealing with Kyrie Irving, okay? I don't want another guy where the Nets have to try to massage his ego 24/7 to maximize the productivity. I want a guy who wants to just flat out ball and win like Kevin Durant. So I don't want Ben Simmons. So that's the biggest reason why I don't want the Nets to trade James Harden. And it has nothing to do with the fact that I don't think Ben Simmons is a talented player. I just don't trust between the ears. There is speculation that the Nets would only do a trade if they got other players like Maxey or Thibault or, Seth Curry, players like that in the deal. And yeah, I could accept a trade if that's the case, if players like that, especially Maxey. If Maxey and Seth Curry were in the trade, I would do it in a heartbeat. But I don't know if that's going to happen. So it's just one of those situations where I don't see it happening, and then I don't really want it to happen. But I did come up, I said this before, with some alternate trade ideas, outside-the-box trade ideas that I don't think are going to happen, but I thought it'd be a little fun just to share a couple of them with you. I'm actually going to share 3 of them with you because one of them certainly can't happen anymore because it involved Karis LeVert, and I don't know if you heard he got traded to the Cavs recently, so that one's nixed. But I have 3 more trades that I would rather see happen involving James Harden going to the 76ers that the Nets should do. And so obviously there's 3 team trades because no matter what situation it is, these trade scenarios I came up with always have Ben Simmons going to the third-party team, always having James Harden going to the 76ers, and the Nets getting another player. So here's some trade ideas that I would rather see happen. And by the way, they all work financially. I figured them all out and all this stuff. And obviously, there would have to try to be some draft picks involved to try to entice it, because not all of these trades are pure fair value. So teams would have to get draft picks involved. But this is what I came up with. So the first one, complete pipe dream, will never happen, but it would work. 76ers get Harden and Millsap. Trailblazers get Ben Simmons, and the Nets get Damian Lillard. Not happening, okay? I know that's a fun little thing I just threw out there. It works contractually. Damian Lillard is out for possibly the rest of the year. We don't know if he's coming back or not. I know that the Trailblazers are looking like they're going to start shifting towards a rebuild, but they still don't want to trade Damian Lillard. It's not happening, okay? I understand, it's a pipe dream, and I also feel like that wouldn't be enough for the Trailblazers to trade Damian Lillard, just getting Ben Simmons in the deal. They would have to get loads of draft picks in that deal as well. I don't see it happening, but it just works contractually, and I said, that would be pretty cool. The Nets trade James Harden and Paul Millsap, and they get Damian Lillard, and then you pair up a backcourt of Damian Lillard and Kyrie Irving. That's a small backcourt, but it's an amazing backcourt. Not going to happen. I just want to throw that out there. So I'm not going to spend a lot more time talking about that. But the other two that I came up with, to me, are more of a possibility, especially this next one I'm going to talk about. So the other possibility is a 3-team trade. The 76ers get Harden and Millsap. 76ers always get Harden and Millsap because it works. Or Harden and Javon Carter. Or Harden and Bruce Brown. It's always one of those players. Harden and James Johnson, which, by the way, is anyone else really sick of James Johnson? He's really irritating the crap out of me. I'm ready for him to go too, all right? Nets need to stick with Bruce Brown and DeAndre Bembry and get James Johnson off this damn team, because he'll do something great 1 minute and then he'll just do what I call, bro, you're doing too much. And that's exactly what he does. He does, bro, you're doing too much, okay? All right? You're a good glue player. You do the little things. Stop going and slashing to the basket and taking these mid-range jump shots and trying to take these tough shots. That's not who you are, right? Bro, you're trying to do too much, James Johnson. So I'm sick of him. But anyway, all these trades involve Harden and one other player. So anyway, Harden goes to the 76ers with Millsap. Ben Simmons goes to the Houston Rockets with Javon Carter. And the Nets get John Wall, Seth Curry, and Danny Green. Now, this is the one I like, and I think is the most plausible, because we know the Rockets are trying to trade John Wall. He hasn't played all year. They said, John, we're going to find you a new team. And he's been healthy. And I think some people forgot how good John Wall was before he had the injuries. And, he was an all-star. He was a 20-10 guy. A guy who could average 20 points, 10 assists. He was a very good defensive player, extremely athletic, and he's fully healthy. Now, is John Wall going to be a 20-10 guy now? I don't know. But he'll be a ball-dominant player like James Harden is, but can really play really well in the pick and roll. I mean, James Harden's good in the pick and roll. John Wall is just as good. And if the Nets do this trade and then they get Seth Curry and Danny Green as floor spacers, guys who are shooting well over 40% from three, wouldn't you do this trade? And it would cost the Nets James Harden, Paul Millsap, and Javon Carter? This one is very plausible. It's very possible because all the parties involved are looking to move these players. Rockets want to trade John Wall for sure. The 76ers wants James Harden. So the only way this wouldn't work is if the Nets just don't feel that John Wall, Seth Curry, and Danny Green is a good enough haul for James Harden. And I understand that because, you're looking at a player in John Wall whose peak is probably all-star level. But I'm just thinking about the fit with this team, with Seth Curry and Danny Green as shooters and John Wall pretty much being plugged into the James Harden role as the primary ball handler and facilitator. I think it works, especially when Durant comes back, especially if Kyrie gets vaccinated or they drop the mandate. Though the team would just work better. So I would not mind that trade. I really want it. And once again, I don't think it's going to happen, but I certainly would rather have John Wall than Ben Simmons, and that is up for debate. I get it. A lot of people say, like, NetsBoy, you really would rather have John Wall than Ben Simmons. And I would say, talent-wise, no. But between the ears, yes. And that is why I would do that trade. Fit-wise, yes. That's just one I would really want to do if I'm, Sean Marks. I would explore that as a possibility. But once again, I don't think it's going to happen. But now my number one outside-the-box trade idea, to me, is another pipe dream. But unlike the Damian Lillard pipe dream, it is a more plausible pipe dream, which is why it's number one. The Rockets deal is the most likely to happen, but this one is less likely to happen, but it's more likely to happen to the Trailblazers, but it's a pipe dream and would be, in my opinion, the best trade the Nets have ever done. Well, that's not true, but it would be a very good trade. That is the 76ers get Harden and Millsap. The Wizards get Ben Simmons and Javon Carter, and the Nets get Bradley Beal, Spencer Dinwiddie, and Seth Curry. Now, there would have to be draft picks involved in this trade for sure. But why would this trade be a possibility? Well, it's really simple. There's rumors that a bunch of people within the Wizards aren't a fan of Spencer Dinwiddie. We heard him. He had an interview. He said, I tried to speak up and be a leader. It wasn't really accepted well. So Spencer Dinwiddie is probably going to be on his way out, whether it's by the trade deadline or over the offseason. It's not working out there. So right off the bat, Dinwiddie's probably going to be traded. The question is this Bradley Beal. Do the Wizards believe that they can still be competitive with Bradley Beal, or do they want to just say enough is enough, let's blow it up? We've tried, we tried John Wall and Bradley Beal, it didn't work. We tried Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal, it didn't work. And now we're trying Dinwiddie and Bradley Beal, it didn't work. Maybe it's just time to blow up this team and trade Bradley Beal as well. And let's get an all-star caliber player in Ben Simmons and maybe some draft picks. And like I said, this would probably need draft picks as well from probably the 76ers and maybe some second-round draft picks from the Nets, because we all know they don't have any first-round draft picks. So maybe the Wizards decide to do that. I don't know. But I will tell you this now. If the Wizards do decide to do this and trade Beal and Dinwiddie, and then the Nets still got Seth Curry in the deal as well, or maybe Danny Green or maybe Thibault, someone that makes the contracts work, I mean, it would be incredible. Just imagine Dinwiddie as the starting point guard. You play Bradley Beal and Kyrie Irving, or maybe you start Kyrie Irving and have Dinwiddie come off the bench and let Bradley Beal be the starting two, and Kevin Durant. I mean, just imagine that. Kyrie Irving, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant. And then Spencer Dinwiddie coming back home to the Nets, running the second unit with Cam Thomas, who, by the way, has looked phenomenal. And once again, it's time for Steve Nash to continue. He's been doing it, to continue to let Cam Thomas be the focal point of the second unit. He's doing it, and I'm glad that he's doing it. So Steve Nash has kind of figured out that they got to, let this kid score. But just imagine that team. But look, that's probably not going to happen either, solely on the purpose that I don't think the Wizards are ready to trade Bradley Beal yet, ready to give up on him. But if the 76ers really want James Harden that much and are willing to are willing to part with 2 first-round draft picks and Ben Simmons to go to the Wizards, perhaps the Wizards think about doing it. And maybe the Wizards throw, like, Bertans in the deal as well, and he can go to the 76ers. There's possibilities here. So those are just 3 outside-the-box possibilities. Like I said, they're all kind of pipe dreams. Only the Rockets one has a plausible chance, but it's kind of, in my opinion, a moot point because I don't see James Harden being traded. I really don't. That being said, anything can happen. I really think that Sean Marks should focus on trying to trade for some, space, floor spacers, some more players who can stretch the floor. I think players like Javon Carter and Paul Millsap and DeAndre Bembry and Bruce Brown and James Johnson, those are the guys that make the most sense to try to trade and part with to get some more perimeter shooting. I don't want the Nets to trade Claxton. I've heard rumors about that. I think that's a terrible idea. I think Claxton's value is more than just potential at this point with this Nets team. I think that they need his defensive versatility and his ability, and, you know, he's getting much and much better. He has loads of upside, but right now I think he's a big piece that they're missing. And I don't think they should trade Cam Thomas. Kessler Edwards, they shouldn't trade. They're on sharp. I like him, but I wouldn't cry if he got traded. But I think those other guys I named earlier, Sean Marks' focus should be trading one of those guys at a second-round draft pick for some perimeter shooting. The problem is there's not a lot of available perimeter shooters out there. I talked about this way back in a couple episodes. Maybe Mike Muscala with the Thunder. He's a stretch big who, is shooting over 40% from three. He could be someone the Nets could try to trade for. Outside of him, I don't know. They'll have to use their trade exceptions that they have. You know, the $11 million trade exception for the Dinwiddie trade to possibly partner up with a player to try to get maybe a player worth a little bit more. I'm sure there's something that Sean Marks is looking at. And I'll tell you this right now. The Nets definitely need to make a trade. There is no doubt about it, okay? If the trade deadline comes and I hear that the Nets did not make a trade, I'm going to be super upset because they need help. The way this team is constructed now, they don't have enough shooting, their defense is garbage, and they just need a spark. And, losing 8 straight games will cause that, and the Nets need to turn it around. They cannot just bank on Kevin Durant coming back and Joe Harris coming back and LaMarcus Aldridge coming back and Claxton coming back and James Harden being engaged and Kyrie getting a vaccination. They cannot count on just that. So we'll see what happens. So there you have it. That's my spiel on this James Harden news. Some outside-the-box trades. The reality of the situation is I don't see James Harden getting traded, and I think Sean Marks should focus on making some tweaks, getting some more perimeter shooting, and solidify this team, and just pray that the Nets get healthy at some point and become more whole at some point, or else it's going to be a major disappointment for this Nets team. Let me know what you guys think about everything, about the James Harden news, my outside-the-box trade ideas, who the Nets should try to go after in trades, what you think about this Nets team losing 8 straight and dropping all the way to the 6th seed and sniffing the play-in tournament. It just... It's very frustrating. Let me know what you guys think about everything. I'm not doing what I think should happen the next couple games for the Nets because they're a disaster and they're lucky to win any games at all right now. So we'll see what happens. So keep your eyes open to the next NetsBoy episode. It'll be after the trade deadline because the trade deadline is, 5 days away. So it will be after the trade deadline. I'll probably do a video the Friday or Saturday after and talk about what moves the Nets made, which, like I said, there better be some. So thank you all again for bearing with me. Let me know what you guys think. And until then, this is NetsBoy. Just... words can't even describe what NetsBoy is doing right now. Just unbelievably frustrated with the Nets. And signing off.